Welcome, and thanks again for being here. Today we're going to talk about how to talk to customers. And here with me is Graciëlla van Vliet, co-founder of Closure. Can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Herman. Great to be here. Really excited to share my experiences. I'm Graciëlla. I'm co-founder of Closure, which is a platform to unburden relatives after someone passed away. By finalizing all contracts, accounts and subscriptions. So for example, your gas and electricity, your social media, a swap feeds account, but also like charity, sport clubs, public transport and so on. So whenever someone passes away, the family has to take care of all those contracts and accounts, and we unburden them by offering one central platform where they can finalize them all at once. And we sell this product to corporates, offering the contracts and accounts, because we save them a lot of customer support costs, and we prevent them from harming their own reputation, because there are a lot of mistakes made. So for example, whenever a relative reaches out to a company to tell them about the loss of a loved one, they just receive a general notification like, too bad to see you go, good luck at your next provider, which is super painful. And we prevent that from happening.
All right. So those are pitfalls from those companies. Yes, exactly. What are your general pitfalls?
Oof. So how long does the interview last? No, there are quite a lot. I think, so I'm responsible for sales, for the B2B sales. So we have actually two kinds of sales. We reach out to funeral directors, but also to the corporates I just mentioned. And my responsibility is partnerships with the corporates we just mentioned. And one of the pitfalls is rushing through the sales process. So there are, at least for us, there are certain steps. It takes quite long to close a deal with the corporate, about half a year, I think on average, which is really long. And the first step is actually getting to know the customer and their pains and needs instead of talking about your own product. So this is what we did in the beginning. So we started pushing our solution, which is really, really bad. Because then there are a lot of differences between those companies, and you have to find out what they are to really specialize your solution tailored to this company. Then the next thing is, so there are different kinds of customers. So one of them is the really excited customer, the one that tells you like, oh, it's not about how we are, or it's not about if we are going to implement it, but how we are going to implement it. And then you're tempted to send them to push your solution and just start right ahead because they tell you that they want to close the deal, but then this never happens. You first have to build a relationship, and this is typically the CEO or high-level manager that is really excited from the start, but then you have to get the team along, so that's also a mistake. We made a lot, like, oh, okay, now we can just start building, and then they're like, okay, but first we need to build a business case. And so I think if we break it down to different steps, first it's about getting to know your client, then building a relationship, then towards the end of the first meeting or even the second meeting, I start talking about what we do actually and how we could help them. Then it's about developing a mock-up to show them what it looks like, especially for their organization. It's about building a business case. They probably have to pitch their idea to their supervisor. So sometimes, preferably, we reach out, we get in contact with some high-level management, and then they redirect it to the owner of this project. So in our case, it's often the head of customer service. But also sometimes we start at the head of customer service and they have to pitch it to their director. So that's the next step, that's the most difficult one. So we have to give them kind of munition to pitch it to their supervisor. And then it's about starting to build something, and that's something we try to wait as long as possible, because then you're making costs, and of course you want to postpone that as long as possible. Yeah, so one of our pitfalls is just rushing through this process. So it's defining all the steps, and every time whatever party we're talking to, it's the same procedure, and instead of thinking you're already in the contract phase when you have the first meeting, that's not possible. So don't get tempted to behave like you're in the contract phase when you're actually not. I think that's one of our main pitfalls.
All right. Great. So when you start thinking about the process as a whole, how do you find out who is the right person to talk to? You mentioned there are differences between the user and the customer. There are large organizations, so how do you find out who is the right person? And also, if you find out who the right person is, how do you start building a relationship with that person? How do you first reach out, and what do you do from then on?
Okay. A couple of questions. So the first one, how do you find out? Well, this is tough because I thought that only at partnerships we used it really cool names like partnership hero of whatever, but they also do that at companies. So it's hard to find out who you should talk to. And don't make the mistake by like assuming they are not the right person, because that's painful for someone. So there are two ways actually. So it differs per company. In our case, for example, for charities, it's the head of like the one that gathers the donations, the special donations. As opposed to a telecom provider, it's head of customer service. So I think it's learning by experience. But then the most easy way is reaching out to the CEO of the company. They're never gonna make time to talk to you, but at least they will redirect you to the right person. And that's also really convenient, because then you can tell them like, oh, I got redirected by CEO Pete whatever. He told me to reach out to you. So that's already a compliment for this person, because he got redirected by the CEO, and probably you're not just some cold acquisition party, which we are, in fact. So that really helps. And then it's just more experience. And also, sometimes you talk to one person, because we are dealing with a lot of different people actually in an organization. So it's head of customer service, but it's also IT and also legal, because we're dealing with GDPR, like personal information of deceased people. And so there are a lot of different people you need to talk to, and just getting started with one, and they will redirect you to the right person in general. But you try to start not bottom up, but like from the highest level, because it saves you a lot of time in the whole sales cycle. I think there, for example, insurance companies, they're really difficult. So there are sales cycles that lasted 1.5 years, and also that lasted like 2 or 3 months. To give you an example of and that's mainly has to do with defining the right steps, and also talking to the right person from the start.
All right. Cool. So eventually, when they're on board, how do you make sure that they stay on board? Do you put something in your contract? What kind of relationship do you build from the moment that they actually sign the contract and so forth? That even in your case, there's not a lot of competition out there, but how do you make sure that they do stick with you? And even if competitors do arise, how do you still make sure that they stick with you?
Yeah, good question. Maybe can I get back to your previous question, because I left out something. It's about how we reach out, and I think that's very important. Yeah. So in the beginning, we actually we turned from B2C to B2B by chance, because we reached out to KPN. That was our launching customer, because we wanted to prevent our company from having like 100 customer service employees calling organizations. So we wanted to automate the process. And then we just reached out and asked them like, are you willing to share your experiences? Because we are building on this and this and this, and I think we can really learn from each other, which was not a sales talk. It was really about learning from each other. But this was really a good sales talk, actually, because all those companies wanted to talk to us, because they were willing to share experiences. And like the example I just mentioned about sending the general notification, good luck at your next provider, which is painful, they know about those cases. So they really want to prevent that from happening. And this was a really good start to get in contact with those companies, because we just reached out, like share experiences, and then we just asked a lot of questions, and then it's like, okay, so how many people do work at your customer support desk that is specialized in deceased people? Oh, 40 people. Wow, okay, that's a lot. It's quite an interesting business case. Can we save some cost there maybe? And oh, we already have this information. Can we send it to you instead of you reaching out to relatives? So I think that was really helpful for us, at least.